All right, so here we go here. We're going to share some information with our viewers and talk about the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings for the remaining teams that are going to be playing in the division matchups. Number 8, and the only team with a negative net point still in. But when you're winning those games late and you've been losing, because they were negative going into the playoffs, they're less negative now than what they were. I think they were like minus 0.4 last week. Now they're minus 0.2. So they moved up a little bit. And again, this is average net points. Right. So, when you see these decimals and fractions, don't freak out mathematically. It's not a big deal. But on average, for example, Houston's been losing by 0.2 of a point, right? Of a net point, much less. And again, net points is the difference between points scored and points allowed. So above them, number 7, Seattle. Seattle came in, again, a little less than a net point. Green Bay, a little stronger than what you might think at 3.9 net points. And again, if you're winning by an average of about 4 points, that's what this is showing. Over all of their games, they averaged a positive almost 4 points at 3.9. Tennessee at 4.3. And again, for those teams who were in the wild card, this average includes their scoring points for and points against. So for those teams that were not in the wild card, their average is the same as it was at the end of the regular season. They just carried it. So we're just comparing averages here. Minnesota at 6.1. Now we're into the top 5 here with Tennessee at 4.3, Minnesota 6.1, Kansas City 8.9. Remember last year they were definitely double digits.
They were double digits. No doubt.
Oh man, so hot going into it. Speaking of hot, my beloved San Fran up there at 10.6. And sometimes when you're like, you think you got it. As a matter of fact, I think Dalvin Cook almost won the rushing record. He had it. It was all set up. Until Derrick Henry took off on like a 20, 30-yard run and just took it from him. Yeah. You're right there for the win. And then this one team, Baltimore, at 15.6 average net points. That's almost a 2-touchdown win margin.
Absolutely.
As opposed to San Fran, which is a touchdown and a field goal about. So, anything you want to go into on the net point thing?
I mean, these teams are kind of lining up the way they're supposed to, besides probably Green Bay. I would say if I was going off the top of my head and doing my own little quick eye test power ranking, I might move Green Bay up a tad. But other than that, yeah, everything seems to be right. And although teams like Houston and Seattle are averaging less than less than 1 net point, that does not mean that they can't win. Now, obviously, they won't be favored by the bias plus.
No, they'll talk about it.
But
man.
At this point,
it's crazy last week.
At this point, after seeing what happened wild card weekend,
man, we'll mention some of the stats that go into your net points. Again, we mentioned scoring points for and defense points against. I'll mention that in terms of points against, Baltimore came in with an average of 17.6. Minnesota was the only other team averaging in that area at 17.2. Minnesota actually came in a little bit better in terms of average points given up. In terms of scoring, Baltimore is first. They're averaging 33.2 points per game. My Niners are at 29.9. But strong. My Niners are giving up 19 points a game.
Okay.
And a lot of that came in the second half when our defense
had a tough schedule, man.
Yeah,
they played a string of really good teams.
Absolutely. Minnesota, Tennessee, Houston, and Seattle are all within a couple of points in terms of their scoring, average scoring, with Houston at 22.2, ranging up to Minnesota at 24.1. So there's only a couple points difference on average between all of those teams. A little more diversity with the Niners, Baltimore, KC, and Green Bay. Green Bay coming in ninth at 23, KC fifth at 28. And again, these are the teams on the bye, so this is where they ended up at the end of the season in terms of scoring. Baltimore, again, we said was first, and the Niners were second. So just to give some ideas about where these numbers came from in terms of net points and who's who. All right?
Very good.
Let's get ready to move on to our review of Wild Card Weekend.